I want to turn to politics now. Georgia Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker, who has campaigned on banning abortion without exceptions, is again denying reporting in the Daily Beast that he allegedly urged his girlfriend to have an abortion in 2009 and sent her a check to cover the cost. Take a listen to what he had to say today.
It's sort of like everyone is anonymous or everyone is leaking and they want you to confess to something you have no clue about, but it just shows how desperate they are right now. They see me as a big threat, and I know that, and I knew it when I got into this race, but they don't realize that I think they came for the wrong one. They energize me. They energize me because I know how they really want to try to keep this seat.
Now, NBC News has not yet verified the allegations or independently reviewed the documents obtained by the Daily Beast. When reached for comment, Walker's campaign pointed NBC News to his denial of the story and its intention to file suit, which has not happened yet to our knowledge. Walker also responded to videos posted online by his 23-year-old son, Christian, that blasted his father's campaign and called him a bad father, a liar, and a hypocrite.
Well, I love my son unconditionally, and that's where I've always been. I always love him unconditionally. Well, the damage he's doing is letting people know that the left will do whatever they can to win this seat. And I told you when I got in this race, I'm going to win this seat. People see someone sitting here in front of you right now that's been redeemed, and I want America to know I'm living proof that you can make mistakes and get up and keep going forward.
NBC's Yamiche Alcindor is on the ground in Georgia talking to voters, and NBC's Vaughn Hillyard is out in Arizona following Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz as he campaigns for candidates ahead of the midterms, now less than 5 weeks away, if you can believe it. Yamiche, let me start with you because you've been talking to folks there in Georgia. What is their reaction so far to this controversy with Herschel Walker? Do you feel like some of his supporters are defecting, or are they standing by him?
Well, Kristen, the big question is, how is this October surprise going to impact this tight Senate race here in Georgia? I've been in Marietta, Georgia all day talking to voters. This is a part of the state of Georgia that used to be deeply red, that's shifted blue. Take a listen to what voters told me about these allegations that Herschel Walker paid for an abortion. Take a listen.
It doesn't impact my vote in this case. I haven't seen any evidence yet. I prefer people who are principled, who do the things they're advocating. But I don't think it'll impact my vote.
I believe it. I don't think she's just making this story up, and I think as we go through it, we'll see. All the facts will come to light. I believe it. The only reason Herschel Walker is on this ballot right now is because he supports Trump. If you support Trump, you can have any kind of morals in this country.
So you heard it, voters with all sorts of different opinions. But the bottom line is, after talking to a number of voters, I get the sense that this isn't really changing people's minds. If you're a voter who didn't like Herschel Walker, and I met many of them, this isn't going to sort of change anything for you. Voters told me that they already thought that he didn't have the character to serve in the U.S. Senate because of the domestic abuse claims that he was facing. But I also talked to some Herschel Walker fans, and they tell me even if this allegation is true, even if he paid a woman who was carrying his child to have an abortion, they will forgive him because everyone, they say, makes mistakes. It's also important to note that some of those people talked to me about Christian Walker, who is the son who is now broken with his father. They told me that they're not really moved by Christian Walker. One person told me children always feel a certain type of way about their parents. So that sort of tells you what people are thinking down here. I'll also say, of course, the National Republican Party has been circling the wagons and is sticking with Herschel Walker. That also echoes what these voters have been telling me.
Well, and that's exactly what our reporting shows, Yamiche. I've been talking to sources who say, look, you have top Republicans who are going to be standing shoulder to shoulder with Herschel Walker. They're going to be campaigning with him in these final weeks of the campaign. And we know that the campaign has been fundraising off of this. They say they had their best day yesterday. They're still trailing behind Raphael Warnock. But at this point in time, the national Republican top Republicans are standing with him. I mean, that's fairly significant.
It is very significant, and there's a source telling NBC News that that Herschel Walker, just in the last few days here, since this story broke in the Daily Beast, that he's raised at least $500,000. And he's talking about the fact that he's a victim. He said that these are all lies, saying that this woman who's making these allegations, that she is part of the left conspiracy to try to stop him from winning this Senate race. That is a tight race. I should also note, though, that the Daily Beast is saying that this woman, that she's anonymous because of privacy concerns, but that they interviewed someone who was a friend who corroborated her story and took care of her after this alleged abortion. So a lot of things going on here, but I will also say one other thing, which is that there's a voter who told me that the Republican Party is somewhat unrecognizable, a critic of Herschel Walker, who said this is really the echoes of the Trump politics, where you had former President Trump, who had all sorts of scandals involving adult film stars, involving multiple children by multiple women. It didn't really matter at the end because he still was able to be the president and is still a very, very popular figure in the Republican Party. That is also what's happening here with Herschel Walker in some voters' minds, Kristen.
Yeah, it's a really great point, Yamiche. The playbook has changed in the post-Trump era. And of course, his challenger, Raphael Warnock, declining really to weigh in directly on this controversy, instead saying, look, I just want to stress that I have consistently supported abortion rights. Vaughn, let me turn to you. You are in Arizona following another very tight race, conservative candidates. Well, let me actually ask you about the race that you've been following, which is, of course, Ted Cruz is there to campaign with Kari Lake. Talk about this race and what are the stakes and what's the impact of having Ted Cruz?
Right. Ted Cruz is on a bus trip around the country where he's making campaign stops. He is landing here in Arizona this afternoon. Just about a half hour from now, he will be joining Kari Lake, the candidate for governor here, but also the likes of Blake Masters, the U.S. Senate campaign. We can get more into his race. But this is a situation in which Kari Lake is really trying to galvanize Republican voters around the state to come out and support not only her, but also help boost the like of Blake Masters, inviting him to her campaign events, as well as the likes of Mark Fincham, who is running for Secretary of State, Abe Amade, who is running for Attorney General. So what you've seen on the Democratic side, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, Katie Hobbs, run independently from Adrian Fontes, who's running for Secretary of State, who's been running independently from Chris Mays, who's been running independently from Mark Kelly for the U.S. Senate. This Republican ticket is trying to unify and win big in what would be a major sweep for Donald Trump, a state that would allow him to make the case heading into 2023 and 2024 that he should be the party's nominee. But you have to look at the reality that in 2020, Donald Trump won here by Donald Trump lost here by about 10,000 votes. Mark Kelly won by about 2.5 percentage points here. These numbers are so close, even in polling here today. That's where, when you look at this at a national perspective, the dynamics nationally, when we're talking about these races being federalized, really have not changed that much. Donald Trump is still very much the face of this Republican Party, and the Republican candidates in the state have stood solely by him and will campaign alongside him here on Sunday. So the question is, could the Dobbs decision, could that pull off just enough voters there to keep this in Democratic hands? Ultimately, there's so many questions here, while early voting is slated to begin just 1 week from now, Kristen.
Yeah, and I have to imagine that what's happening in Georgia is getting some reaction there in Arizona, where you are as well, because Republicans really see Georgia as critical to their path to winning the Senate. So what's your sense, Vaughn? Because as you just say, abortion could be a game changer in some of these races.
You know, and it was Georgia and Nevada that really Republican leaders were looking at as their greatest pickup opportunities. And Blake Masters had really, his campaign had gone down on the totem pole. The NRSC had pulled out, no longer spending money here. Mitch McConnell's, the Senate Majority PAC, had stopped spending money here, or I should say the Senate Leadership Fund had stopped spending money here. But suddenly, with Georgia really becoming a question mark, there's now a doubling down of whether Blake Masters could become a contender here, or whether it's worth investing resources here. Blake Masters has been hit on the airwaves by a rate of 5 to 1. I mean, about $50 million has been spent for Mark Kelly, as opposed to about $10 million on behalf of Blake Masters. And the Kelly campaign and allies of his have really hit him on past remarks, suggesting that there should be a federal personhood bill, that there should be a national abortion ban. He at one point called abortions demonic. And so for Blake Masters, he's really put himself here into a corner. And when you're looking at least on the airwave spending, it's a question for Republicans whether it'd be worth reinvesting resources here as he continues to move across the country. Polling would suggest, a new CBS poll here today had him down by just 3 percentage points, and that could turn the eyes of some Republicans at a time in which Kari Lake in that Katie Hobbs governor's race is still neck and neck, and there's a question of whether she could help pull up some of these other candidates across the board, Kristen.
Yeah, and that is why Senator Ted Cruz is doing his part. It was a lot to cover for you, Vaughn and Yamiche, beforehand. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.